Yo, 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 what is going on, IK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. We are back again for another dope sauce dopity Infinity Kingdom video. Today, we are going to be covering more expanded details on KvK. Yes, the Frozen Wastes connector that we are going to be diving into. Some new information that I've been able to get just from some questions that I've asked to the IK team surrounding some of the updates and information we've been posting. And before I get started, as always, two parts here. One, of course, make sure you guys sub, like, and ring that notification bell to get updates on when we have new content coming out. You can always join our Discord as well to get content updates and join our conversation. Number two, also want to give a big shout out here to Ruli, who's been doing a really good job with posting content on the written side and updates on KvK. So again, really always awesome to support the people that are doing the written content in addition. Now, the thing I really want to talk about today, and we're going to go over this, and we're going to show you some screenshots as well for some new updated information that we've got, along with some further clarification to questions that I had asked the team as well, to hopefully give you the most up-to-date information as of right now for everything we know currently about KvK, because there's a lot, and it really is exciting, to say the least, right? You can see some of the hype already starting just with them opening up a KvK chat room here in the Great Hall. So awesome to see, but without further ado, let us dive in. So, yesterday in the morning, we saw a newer post here from Legion of Frostborn. This is kind of like the actual origin story, so if you guys want to read this, I actually did read it, and I found it to be... I'm not really big on lore type stuff, but I read it just to see if there might have been any updates or little clues or hints here or there. And for the most part, it really is just kind of talking, giving you kind of a backstory on how everything kind of came to be. So if you like that, give it a read. It's on the Facebook. Now, let's dive into some of these IK details here. So I'm going to kind of go through these things one at a time, and I don't know if I just need to increase the font size so it kind of shows it a little bit more. Let's go to 30. All right, this feels better. So it just doesn't show as much on the screen. Okay, let's start with number one, top down for everything we know. And we have some screenshots we're going to rotate in between as well. So really get ready, really get excited, get hyped. Okay, number one, the event is going to start in a reserved season. What this really means is that it's like a prorated thing. An example I'd give you is, let's say you have a month's rent coming up, and better yet, let's say you're moving in to an apartment, and you're moving in halfway in through the month. You're not going to pay that whole month's rent. You're going to get charged or pay a prorated amount for the actual time you're going to be in there. Very similar to what's happening here when the event comes out shortly after in the 1.7 patch. You will, and it's most likely not going to be immediate from what we're hearing. It's probably going to be a couple days, a week. It's going to be sometime after the patch officially launches and the update is ready for players to download. Then it'll start. But it's going to be starting in like a prorated season. So it's not going to necessarily be a full season. It's going to be more of a condensed season for the first time around. And again, it says which may consist of 20 days. So I think that's actually really cool. Unlike what we've seen, and again, we don't know what the full season is going to be. Maybe it's 30 days or so. Maybe it's double that. But the one thing I will say is that coming from Rock in there, right, you have about 45 days, unless they've changed it recently, but about 45 days of a season to be playing in KvK, and it's great to play for that long, but I also think condensing it or having it a little shorter, if they're able to, right, with kind of what we're seeing in IK, that has me looking forward to it not being something we're going to just be in there forever, and then it also allows for us to get to future seasons a little bit quicker. So we'll see how it plays out for this inaugural season once 1.7 drops, and then what the actual average time is going to be. Number two, when the event begins, if you choose to go to the battlefield, you will get in a new map. Again, we've showed the new map before, but let me, just for reiteration purposes, we'll show you. This is what it looks like for the new map. and you can go back to the original map, right? The changing of the map will cost 1 random teleport each time. So I like the fact that, again, which we already know now, it's another map. You're not having to go invade another server, get your server invaded, but they've made a special map for the event. Big win here. Number 3, lords who want to participate in the event should have their castle higher than level 15 and stay in an alliance. This is pretty standard to me. Lords will have this event with lords from other 7 servers, which means there's going to be 8 servers at a time. So you're going to get put into groups of 8. Now, as it's a server versus server event, the kingdom limitation when choosing a friendly ally is no longer here. After joining, you will have a new server color. You need to choose your ally after you get in the event. Now, a few notes here. The server color is chosen at random by the system. This has been confirmed and what we know right now. This means that doesn't matter if you're coming in with blue, red, green, or everyone, your server, as an example, server 1 could be blue, server 2 could be green, server 25 could be purple, right? Whatever it is, you will be given a default color at random. Now that could change maybe going forward, but that's just how it is for now. This also means that there's no ally or enemy form from the diplomacy area within the alliance hub. An example of this is if we go in game, right, you'll know that let me just do this and go back. If I click on Alliance, you have the Diplomacy tab here where you can have allies and enemies. That is not going to be something that is relevant in SVS. Instead, you're going to be kind of choosing allies and enemies based on doing more kind of server or cross-server diplomacy, right? So you may reach out to other servers ahead of time once you find out the servers that are in your group, and then you may do diplomacy that way to form kind of server unions or coalitions or allies, if you will. And that's also another fantastic, just exciting part of the game, in my opinion, as it always has been for these types. Then we go, when you get on the new map, you are safe, because there is a new thing called a vision area. And we're going to dive into that a little deeper here in a moment. This is because when you teleport in, you are put into districts 1 through 8 for each server, where it is only your server's players, so no PvP from what we know in the beginning, unless you want to attack your own players. So now, we're going to show you how the map looks. So here's a sneak peek at some information for how it looks. Now, you're looking at this now, and you're like, okay, Zone 4, Zone 5, Zone 6, but really what's happening is that each of these zones, so it is different than what we've seen from the rock map. In the rock map, Zone 4 is like your corner, and then this area here, the 1 through 8, would be considered your respective Zone 5s. And then you would have Zone 6 here on the second ring, and then in the middle would be Zone 7, right? That's pretty standard for any of the people who've played Rock, and I'm sure a couple other Kingdom Builders if they do those similarly. But in here, you actually have a big area, and this area is literally designated for your entire alliance. So my assumption is that there's based on what we're hearing, I shouldn't say assumption, but based on what we're hearing, there will be gates that will lead into Zone 2, and these will be the arguable fighting areas, right? So these will kind of be like the Zone 4s, if you will, except they're going to call them Zone 2s, it seems like. So you're going to fight in Zone 2s up to, right, potentially how it looks, having up to 2 other opponents, so 3 servers could fight for this, which means if you have 1 come out, you'd have 4, and then you'd all go into this kind of center Kingsland or World Heartland area, and then you'd all fight it out. So again, a different take on it, at least from what I've experienced in other Kingdom Builders, but I still like it, and I'm really excited. And again, we'll show you some more things here in a bit. Let's go back to the details. Now, the new map, which we called Legion of Frostborn, is covered by heavy fog. You can only see limited area around you and your alliance and rally members. You can't or cannot see enemies in the fog area even if you have their sight. What this means is that if we go back to the map, let's say I'm here and someone else is here. If I am not within their range of vision, what this means is that if around your player city, you're going to have a little bit of vision, right? And I would imagine it could be maybe 1 to 2, maybe 1 to 3 cities worth, right, in radius. But a player, you have to be able to see a player within your field of view, or within the area where they're unfogged. That's a better way of putting it. And then you can attack them. Now, there are also going to be other areas on the map, right? Like it says, you must be within each other's vision or neutral vision areas to fight. Some neutral area visions are, for example, like captured cities. Cities will provide you a vision radius around. Gates that you capture will provide you a vision radius. Thermal places. These are going to be kind of neutral areas on the map that you can go to that'll just have fog, that'll just be defogged. Right, so you could potentially fight people there as well. And then again, the small area around each player's city. Gathering troops. If you send gathering troops out, gathering troops will have a small field of view. So what this means is that like when you get to some of the later, like when you finally get to Zone 2, right, and you're going around trying to find players, right, you have to either relocate or teleport near them to then fight, or you have to fight them in one of these kind of unfogged vision areas. Then let's get to number 8. You can widen your vision. This is probably one of the coolest features. You can widen your vision area by building an alliance tower called a thermal tower. Building materials will be given to your alliance in proportion to what you collect. As an example, if you gather, and by collect they mean gather, if you gather 1,000 stone and your if you gather 1,000 stone, you'll get 1,000 stone, and your alliance will get an extra 100. Unsure, right? So we don't know if there's other ways right now. So far, we only know that the only ways you can get building materials to build thermal towers is through gathering. But the cool thing about this is, again, let's go back to the map. When your alliance gets in, you can build. You basically, for the most part, you want to gather. You want to have everyone gathering the moment that you get in, right? So you can get ahead on building material credits, and then eventually the leader, I think it mentioned, can essentially place these. Guys, I have to see exactly where it said that, but I believe it's your alliance leaders at minimum are able to go onto the map, and then you can place where you want to build these. So I like how they're changing it up. Right, from my time playing Rock, you could build flags, and even some other kingdom builders, you can build these flags that are essentially define your territory. But instead, IK took a totally different approach and said, we're going to fog the map, and then we're going to allow for players to create these kind of unfogging towers or defogging towers that they build, and then they can now see other players and other areas on the map. So I like that, where they're kind of adding in this other element of you working together with your alliance, but not in the traditional sense. So for me, I think that's interesting with the direction they're taking, and we'll have to see how it plays out, but at least at face value, I do like it. And then we end up getting to what the tower brings is not only vision, but also a buff. When you land on the map, you will find it's covered by ice and snow because it's in the north. The ice place also brings a debuff to you, losing your prosperity. You can get rid of this by bubbling your castle or move to a thermal place or building a thermal tower. So towers will give you buffs if you fight within the areas that your towers are. So there is actually going to be additional benefits to kind of building these towers in kind of set strategic or objective points in order to have more, to get more of these buffs when you are fighting, which means that, like, an example would be building these around like an enemy city or something, right, where you can fight the city and they have to kind of fight either away from you. It may cost them more AP to do so. I mean, there are some strategies here that can be applied, but this is cool. You actually get something for building these, not just defogging. In the ice place, gnomes will have the buff, and in thermal place, they will have, they'll have a buff. In the thermal place, they'll have a debuff. So again, gnomes will be stronger if there essentially isn't any kind of vision on them, so to speak. And then if you have, or if you fight them in a thermal area, or if you place a thermal tower and build one, then gnomes will be a little weaker. We're unsure if this is going to give more or less buffs, or excuse me, more or less rewards, depending if they're stronger or weaker. But it is something that we asked, and we're just waiting to hear back. The next one here, and this is where it says, right, only R5s and R6s can place the thermal towers on the map. So again, building off what we said before, R6 is minimum. R5s can now also place, I shouldn't say can now, but can also place those as well. Once you put it on the map, all Alliance members should send troops, of course, to build it, right? Going to be similar to sending them to upgrade construction for a city. The more soldiers, the faster, kind of goes without saying. This also means that you can cancel out another alliance's thermal tower if you can build yours before they do. So another strategic element here. And we're going to show you an example of how this looks. These are thermal towers, right? So it's a circle radius tower in the middle, and this is something that would happen if this tower gets built in orange before the blue one does, right? Or before this clear circle above here. So if you build this first, this ring will cancel is the assumption, and they'll have to pick another spot to build their tower. Right, so very similarly to what you would see again in other kingdom builders, but I like this. It's another tactical element. Then we get to 13. As the thermal tower brings vision to your area, the one who places the tower should be careful because, again, the overlap there won't be added to have more. If your vision area of the tower is covered by the enemy as well, who can have the covered vision area is decided by who finishes building faster. Now, I would imagine that thermal towers can probably also be attacked, something we're still waiting to get confirmation on. Now we get into the map is divided into several areas by iced walls. If you want to go to another, you have to go through the gate guarded by gnomes. After you beat them and get the gate, only you and your ally can go through this gate. In one area, there will be several gates. So we're going to show you an example of what that looks like here. So this is a screenshot that was shared. This blue square is the gate. The red player, the orange player and the blue player here is an example of someone who's teleporting. If you have access to the gate, you can just teleport into the next zone. If you slow relocate, then this line resembles what your caravan wagon would do, right? If you wanted to go over here, then it would go through the gate and then over here, right? So no matter what, if you slow relocate, you can pass through. Now, I love this because slow relocating and being able to move your city is such a next level feature in kingdom builders. And for some of the big kingdom builders, right, this is something that I have not seen in them, especially for my time playing Rock and others. Again, this is just something that I absolutely love. You don't have to sit here and just always use teleports, right? It's one of the best features that I have always enjoyed when I initially got into Infinity Kingdom. So I love that they're just building on this and applying similar mechanics to how your city will operate when you move through a gate into the new zone, or vice versa through zones. Then we get to number 15, is that maybe you've noticed, but on the map we have now, you can go to someplace straight, but in the event map there are ice walls, right? We've talked about this. When you teleport in the same area, it's slightly moved, but if you want to move to another area divided by the ice wall, you have to go through the wall. So if we look at this, right, if you're here in Zone 2, you probably won't be able to go to Zone 3. You probably won't be able to migrate to another area just because you don't have access to that area yet unless you attack a gate. That is kind of what our hypothesis is at the moment. Next, after you take a city in the level 1 zone, you can take a city in the level 2 zone. From what we know so far, if you lose a city in level 1 zone, you will not lose a higher level city. So it's kind of like a la carte, right? You can take a city, you lose a city, but there's no prerequisites or other things that you have to do or you would lose because of having a city captured. The next is going to be the cooldown timer for territorial teleports is longer than normal. It's 20 minutes, right? So you can't TP all over. This means, again, you'll probably have to use some of the slow relocation. You'll probably have to do this tactically and really think about where you're going to go because you're really only going to have 2 kind of backup options. This is going to play, I think, such a big factor into fights and battles in KvK, and I'm excited that they've done this. Now, maybe they'll lower this from 20 minutes to maybe 10 minutes. Again, 20 minutes to me seems a little high, but I do think that regardless of the time, It just adds in that extra layer of strategy. Then let's get to 18. The blue circle, or the blue square is your tower, right? And we basically showed this kind of how the vision works here in this screenshot. So for now, that pretty much sums up where we are at when it comes to everything that we know right now. The very last thing I will say about this is that they have said, when it comes to server groups, that the grouping is going to be based off of an MMR rating. And what that means is that it's not going to be servers 1 through 8 or 9 through 16 or 17 through 24. It could be servers 3, 13, 21, 29, 32. I mean, whatever it is, right? It's going to be based on a kind of MMR rating. And this is going to have a few factors. It's going to be the alliance powers, some of the player powers. It could be the age of the server. Again, there's going to be a couple things that go into it. Now, in my opinion, I think the easiest way to really do this would be just to go off the top 300 players, right? You look at the Lord power from the top 300 players, and you would just do, you'd do something like this. You'd go ranking, Lord power, you do blue, green, and red. Right, and you would just add up the top 100 from each. That gives you a top 300 projected, and then that is your server's power, right? That you would go in. So you're kind of using the similar system they've done with Illusion Battlefield, where they'll take your active participants, not your subs, right, but your active participants that that are going in and factoring the players that you've signed up with, and then using that for KvK. Right, so it's, again, similar system that they're doing, but again, we don't know all the finer details, right, for everything and kind of how it exactly works to look at those types of matchups, at least ahead of time. I'm sure we'll find out after more information is released, but at the moment, and I will say this, I like this about what they're doing, starting it off in this way going into Season 1, because when you do it the other way, if you just went with a flat grouping, kind of like what they did for Throne of the Supreme, the challenge is that you can have, like, let's say they did servers 1 through 8. Well, the top servers there that are probably going to be the most competitive is probably going to be 6 and 8, and then 5, right? And then you're just kind of dealing with it there. 9 through 16, right? And again, the same thing. You're going to have a few standouts. But again, not every server within each group, if you did it that way, is going to be active. You might only have 3 or 4 servers that participate. So I think by doing it this way, it ensures that in like the top KvK groups, you're going to get a lot of activity, which is what everyone wants, and you're also going to be playing with servers that are close. So, an example of this could also be if we looked at, and I don't actually have this pulled up, but if we looked at like the top 25 servers list for the stats I gathered that we did, you can look at that list and say something and maybe use that as a soft gauge from some information about, hey, maybe they may get paired in this way, or this could be something that you could use as like, maybe a side factor that could go into it. But for the most part, we don't know. The other thing I will say about KvK is that at the moment, right, we also don't know how servers are going to be placed on that map, right, that I showed you. We don't know if this server is going to get here, if server A is going to be 1, server B is going to be 6, server C is 2. We don't know what that will be yet. The last thing I will say about this is that you will know who you're going to place ahead of time, or who you'll be playing against ahead of time. So after a certain period goes, when KvK comes up, before the map opens to go there, however much time they give you, you will know the servers that are going to be in your group for that KvK ahead of time. So that should give you an opportunity to do things like scouting, do some diplomacy, etc. And that's nice, or at least going to give you a little bit of a window. Finally, with all of that being said, oh, and my bad, I didn't even go back to this as I was showing that, or as I was explaining that. But finally, with all of that, that is everything we know right now for KvK, all the current details. I hope you guys enjoyed my deep dive. That is it for me. Until next time, as always, we will catch y'all later.